Okay, welcome IME 5 Law and the Public Minister course. So if you're watching this because you thought it would be interesting to see how church history, you're in the wrong place. Church history is somewhere else. Back off, you don't need this. Whereas if you are an IME 5 Chichester curate, then you're welcome. And thank you so much, those of you who are able to join the Zoom earlier. I want to do just a couple of things. I want to talk about me, my favorite subject. I want to talk Jesus, obviously. The assignments, we're going to do a little book review. And we're going to talk a little bit about the course. And I want to talk a little bit about Emma and what she was able to bring just now in the Zoom. You've got an audio version of this that I've already sent, but this is sort of a shorter version in this style, and hopefully it's all right. Putting my microphone a little bit closer. So let's talk about me. And it turns out that whereas most of the courses that you do, there's an expert. I'm not an expert, I'm just a village vicar. But in the process of all this, I've done a bunch of things that have required what is covered in this course. And as you'll discover, the main thing that what this course does is not so much in the content as in the people that you meet. And so it's my big prayer that as we do this course, that you'll meet Emma Arbuthnot. She was the one we were just Zooming, and the worshipful Mark Hill and Darren Oliver, the registrar, and well, it would have been Colin Perkins for C2 training. It's likely to be Claire Coles when I can work out what her email address is. I sent a previous one and it seemed to bounce back, so I will try again later. So this course, what's very good about the course is the people that you meet, and that will help you work out who it is you need to turn to for help, because you'll discover that these people are not as scary as perhaps you thought, and they are helpful people. But what this course will do, I hope, is help you see why you might be wanting to talk about what to them, and we'll look at a little bit at that in a moment. You should have your assignment sheet already, and so you should know what essay titles and whatnot you should be doing. Deadline of 2nd of June and the 16th of June. The 2nd of June is your straightforward essay. There's a couple of essays, one generally about law, and a lot of that philosophy was touched on when we met together in January in London for that wedding day. Option number 2 is about marriage law, and so much of that was also covered on that first Saturday. So there you go, you should be already into it. It looks like I'm marking that essay for the entire cohort, so not just for Chichester, but I think also for Rochester and is it Canterbury? Are they the three dioceses that we all sort of share this in with? Assignment 2, this is the case study, 16th of June. I'm not sure that it is me marking these. I think it's a guy called Stephen Thorne. I'm not sure about that surname. I think he's called Stephen, and I'm not sure which diocese he's part of, but he's looking to mark all of assignment 2s, if I've understood him right. The trick here is to focus in terms of case study, is make sure that it's a case study that you've somehow been connected to, rather than here's something interesting I read in the Church Times, which we have had, or even somebody put into an appendix the bullet points and statistics of christening, but spent the rest of the essay talking about a theology of christening. Terribly interesting, but this is not so much a theology assignment as it is a law assignment. Yes, we are looking for some Jesus in your essays, but we are also looking for some canon law, and for you to be theologically reflecting, you love that word, on what it is that you're doing. So they are the essay assignments. You should already have that. Quick little book review then. There's a lot of stuff on the Moodle. I understand sometimes by the time you get to your stage, you're grown up and you're beyond looking at Moodle. Other years have sort of said this kind of stuff to me. Okay, don't, because you'll find a ton of stuff there that's really useful. I have put up all of the material, all of the handouts that you would have been receiving this year. Admittedly, they were last year's handouts, so it's possible that some of them might have slightly changed, particularly with regard to Emma Arbuthnot's. but you've just had an email from Emma, well, from me, and it had a whole bunch of links. Coming to that in a minute. So, book review. Really rather obviously, you just should have one of these. No excuses. Don't know why you haven't got one of those. You should have one of those. And you really ought to read it and go through it with your own little pencil mark. A lot of it you go, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and then sometimes you'll be reading something and you go, oh, that's an odd way of putting it. I wonder why they put it like that. So definitely, and I'll be looking for your footnote referencing for this in your assignments. Second one to definitely be plugging, part of an email I sent to you earlier showed you how you can get hold of a 40 quid version of this. Do your best to make sure that it is the 4th edition. That's right, please tell me this is the 4th edition. Yes, 4th edition. Rather than the earlier ones. Amazon will sell this to you for about 100 and something pounds. Mark Hill will sell it to you for 40 as part of the Ecclesiastical Law Society. And you can do that either as becoming a member of the Ecclesiastical Law Society, whereby you get these journals, or as you'll see from my email, you don't actually need to do this. You can go straight ahead and follow his instructions and get that. 40 quid, it is worth it. It really is worth it. Definitely for your essays, you need the first chapter. Actually, the first chapter is on Moodle, so there's a bit of a cheat there. But that will certainly help you for assignment 1 essay. But also you'll find here that it basically answers most of the questions that you will find yourself asking, and it's a good place to start when you're curious about something. But as you're discovering with this course that it's about people, and so the other good place to be starting will be your chapter, and you'll be able to ask around your chapter. Has anybody come across this problem before? Has anybody, what did you do? And getting advice from older and wiser clergy. Well, older clergy. Now, I mentioned the ecclesiastical law journals and your ability to become a member of that. Yeah, don't really. Unless you are a lawyer, unless this thing gives you a real kick, and then go, yeah, do this. It's you know, I hope that the worshipful Mark Hill doesn't hear this, because he'll be terribly upset at me for saying that. But I haven't found it worth the 40 quid for the year's membership of that. You know, this 40 quid, that's worth it. This, if you're a lawyer, if you like this kind of stuff, then yeah, you should absolutely be going for it. As and when you feel ready to step up to being an archdeacon, you should absolutely be going for it. But really, I shouldn't worry about it. This is a good book. It's a general book, and you ought to buy it as a Valentine's present for your church warden, as a sign of how much we love and care for our church wardens, because they are the best people ever, and they are worth their weight in gold. And this is a good, helpful book in that regard. There's another good book about PCCs. I don't have it because I've given it to my next church warden, so I don't have that. Church Representation Rules 2020. You can get these electronically. You don't need them in hardback. The nice thing about the electronic version, of course, is that you can search when you're going, can I do email PCC votes? Where does it say that? And you can just look for that. There is a bit of an index. I commend the idea of you actually having a hard copy, because you know how it is. You're actually at an APCM meeting, and then suddenly somebody asks us a question and you don't really quite know the answer. This is a really good book. This is a very old book now. I think the current version, it doesn't look like this at all. It's same title and same person that's written it. And it might be a little bit out of date because I haven't seen how it updated. But I know when I first read this, it was tremendously helpful in helping me understand what it is that we're about with some of the paperwork that we're looking at. Very helpful. You met this guy already on that Saturday in London as he looks at law books. So it sort of depends on whether or not this is the question that you're looking at wanting to explore. So I'll just leave that hanging in the air as books that you could be looking at. This one it touches a little bit on the safeguarding elements and CDM. I'm not sure that there is particularly an essay and assignment that goes with this. This is a good reflection on it, but you'll need the actual text of the professional, the Code for Professional Conduct of Clergy. You can get that online. I wonder if that's on the middle. I can't remember for a moment. Really good general book for your for any of your essays, and so is this. Possibly this one is a little bit more useful in terms of actually being a vicar. Definitely useful in terms of your essays and where you're at in that regard. Those of you who've got churchyards, I'm not sure if that's the latest version. That says 4th edition. So do have a little check on seeing whether or not it is the latest version before you click buy. Okay, that was a bit of a book review. I've already mentioned Moodle. So I mentioned earlier when we were having our Zoom meeting, the 4 people that you were going to meet. And it starts off with a worshipful Mark Hill. He is the Chancellor of the Diocese. He is the judge, so to speak. So when you fill in a faculty form, because you want to build yourself a loo on the outside of your church, and you go through all the process of that, he is the guy who is ultimately the judge. In the event that you find yourself having to have a consistory court, he is the one who will preside over that. So proper scary guy in that regard, but then you meet him and you discover that actually he's a very personable person. You can speak to him and you can go, help me here, and he's a very helpful person. What I hope that you would find is your ability to email him when sudden disastrous things have happened. You'll have already emailed the Archdeacon, I'm sure, like somehow your church has suddenly become flooded, and you've got to do something instantly to sort stuff out. He will be your man. He will be there for you and will be supportive. In the event that you do want to build a loo on the outside of your church or something like that, and you find yourself dealing with a consistory court because you've got enough objections, 2 of the key things that you'll be looking to do is firstly to understand that Mark Hill, what he wants to do is to balance the missional benefit to the church as a worshipping community, and in terms of how they use this building to facilitate that, with also the heritage responsibilities that we have in caring for our buildings. And so it'll be about working out, is the damage to the heritage sufficiently outweighing the benefits to the mission. So this is not to leave our churches as entombed museums. They are worshipping spaces for the people of God, rather than just museums. And so that's why it's okay for us to explore changing them, but we've got to do it with wisdom and sensitivity. We'll come back to that in a moment when we get to Emma. Darren Oliver is the diocesan registrar. He is your go-to guy when you end up with a confusing wedding, marriage situation, for example, especially with our current lockdown situation, as that unfolds. When can I start marrying people? He will be the kind of guy who will be issuing the rules. Kind of handy for you to get downwind of who is your local surrogate. Now, I'm a bishop surrogate for marriages, so people nearby will come to me, swear an affidavit that this is who they are, so that they can be issued a common license. And so common license ends up being a thing that I can help them with. We covered that on that Saturday in London. So Darren Oliver, very useful person. I'll try and get a Zoom with him, because I think it would be good if you could meet with him. He would usually give a really good lecture on canon law and its basis and understanding, and some of the useful parts of it that very often incumbents need to turn to help them in their ministry. Mark Hill, Darren Oliver, Colin Perkins. Colin Perkins would have given us an evening of C2 training, which is absolutely compulsory for you guys, and it's really healthy for me to be doing it as well. And so this is your safeguarding training. This is not the online. You should already have your C0, your C1 training. This is C2 training, and it has to be done in the presence of Colin. Now, Colin has been seconded to something national, and so in his place we now have Jason Tingley and Claire Coles, and they have said to me that they can do C2 training as a Zoom. So I will sort that out, and we'll try and get that sorted. And that's really important. In the earlier Zoom, one or two of you thought you might have a C2. Good for you. We're going to do it again. And it'll be really compulsory that you're part of that. So I will work hard at making sure you get plenty of warning and notice about a date. I'm going to start off by talking to Claire Coles and seeing if she can give me a date, and then I'll come back to you. But when you do get that date, do your best to just clear everything aside, because it's such an important thing for you to be part of. And the fourth person then is Emma Arbuthnot. Now, I introduced Emma Arbuthnot as the Secretary of DAC, which just shows you how old I am, because that's not how they talk anymore. There is still a DAC, Advisory Committee, keyword being advisory committee. So Mark Hill will listen to the advice that the DAC give, but he'll say, oh, it's just advice. So, yeah, I mean, he'll take it very seriously and importantly, but the DAC are not the judges. It's Mark who is the judge, not the DAC. That being said, you know, if the DAC says you should think about this and we don't think about that, then you shouldn't be too surprised if at some later stage you get a bit of a slap down. Now, the reason why you want to get hold of Emma, she's got a whole team of people who are there for her. So you've got Emma, you've got a guy called Greg Moore, who oversees a lot of the church buildings. So Emma is the queen bee over all of this. You've got Greg Moore, who I think does church buildings particularly. Catherine Pryor, who helps with fundraising. I haven't met Catherine, and I'd like to have a bit of a chat with her, because I suspect she's got some useful connections up her sleeve. And a guy called John Bevan, who's a volunteer helper with pastoral reorganisation. So if you find yourself in the complicated legal position of how do you join parishes, separate parishes, deal with your parish boundaries, John will be a very helpful man. Now you turn to this aspect of law when you get complicated things like a churchyard that has headstones, gravestones. And you'll get a piece of paper that says, you know, these are the dimensions of the gravestone we would like to put in, and this is the stone, this is the architecture, this is the art we want on our stone, and this is the wording, and you will find in, it was just here, where have we put it? You'll find in here, please note the date, this is April 2020, so please make sure you've got the up-to-date version. And it is in Emma's email. I think the version on Moodle might be the previous one from January of 2020. It might have been January 2019. And this will sort of give you help in terms of headstones and things like that. It's really straightforward. Your training incumbent ought to touch on it, but in the event that you know this is wholly new to you, and it might be covered in there's a later course called First Incumbency course. So if you're still in this diocese, well, I hope any diocese would do something like this. You know, you'll go away for a weekend and explore how to chair a good PCC and all the useful things that you need to know as you're a first incumbent. But hopefully I'll also do a bit of basic law in that regard. So this is helpful when you come around to doing gravestones and headstones. There's details there, and it also explores the fuller faculty elements, but there's a whole bunch of things that you don't need a full faculty for. You've got your list A, and again this is part of the email connections that Emma sent out earlier, your list A and your list B, and these have been changed, so I now need to have a read of these. So how have they changed? I don't days of old we didn't do list A or list B, so I'm still playing catch up in understanding that sort of stuff. And what Emma talked about is list A and list B, they cover sort of ordinary natural boiler replacement, repair type stuff. There's all sorts, there's a ton of things you can do under these different headings. List A is just get on with it. If it's in list A, just do it. Do it sensibly, don't be silly. But there's stuff here you can just get on with. List B is stuff you need to tell your I think you need to tell your architect, you need to tell Emma, and you need to tell your archdeacon this is what you're up, and fill in a form, and they will get back to you within a fortnight, and it'll be pretty straightforward. If there's an emergency, that's different. You're straight on the phone to your archdeacon, who is straight on the phone to Mark Hill and saying, this is an emergency, we've got to do something. That's different. But if it's not covered in list A or list B, then we're looking at the fuller faculty process, and that could be in the region of 6 months, which is really interesting. They obviously have speeded up stuff quite a lot. If you're looking at a magnum opus, you're looking to build that loo outside your church, something like that, you want to bring these people in at the beginning of the discussion, rather than after you spent 3 to 4 years chewing it over and you've worked out exactly what kind of handles you want and everything. This is an early discussion where you invite the DAC to come and have a coffee, have a wander around your church. You go, look, we'd like to put a loo here. What do you think? Inside, outside, over there? What can you give us some help? And what you'll discover is they'll be creative, and they will come up with issues and questions that you might not have thought of, and they'll be encouraging you to be bolder in your plans, and more challenging to. So it's great to have these guys on board. And what they'll also do is they'll help you with the different societies that you'll need to get involved. English Heritage, SPAB, Victorian Society, all these different people who might want a say in what it is you're doing. And our experience is that the earlier that you involve them in what you're doing, the earlier that they feel loved and feel listened to. And so they're in a position to say, look, I see what you're doing. I don't like it. What if you did it? Could you just do it a little bit like this or a little bit like that? And then you can hear that. And if it fits with your thoughts, you go, fine, yeah, we can accommodate that. If for some reason or other it doesn't, then okay, you've got a bit of an impasse. And so that brings you to the next most important piece of paper, which is called your statement of need and significance. Actually, the statement of need is really the core bit here. And this is what you would be writing out to explain why it is we need to do what this work is that we need to do. And the more radical the thing that you're looking to do, build a loo outside your church, as opposed to right, nothing springs to mind, because different things are radical in different church settings, and even removing a pew might turn out to be quite radical in your setting. But it'll need a clear statement of need, and in the statement of need you say we need to do this for these reasons, and we've thought of these different options and they won't work for these various reasons. They won't work, and really this is the one that we've come to because this one will work for these reasons. And so your statement of need becomes quite full, and it's a fairly foolish discussion explaining what it is and why it is you need to be doing this thing. And you're talking to somebody who has never been to your church and who has no idea what you're about, so that you're really covering as much as you can in that statement of significance to help people who've never been to your church, explaining the significance of your church, and statement of need, why this has got to be done. It's got to be done like this, and it can't be done like that because we've thought of these other ideas. Okay, and then that leads further on to the faculty, possibly the consistory court. But if your statement of need is sort of sufficient, then the other societies, they will read this and they'll go, yeah, all right, they really have thought of everything. Now, in the event that you arrive somewhere and a mistake has happened and they didn't get permission, it turns out that there aren't sort of faculty police who are chasing these stuff out. So that's a kindness, but it's also good for you to know as you arrive in a new place, what are the works that's happened and what has happened here. And in the event that you find that you do need a confirmatory faculty, you can plead your case, and it can be heard. I've had to have one in my day, but the dangers of YouTube's means that we will not be sharing anecdotes at the same levels that we would if we were face to face. Okay, I think that's kind of enough from me at the moment. I do hope that we can do some Zooming later, and I hope you're able to crack on with your assignments. So do look out for some emails from me, and we'll try and put together a Zoom, even if it's just us meeting as a group. That would be good. And then I'll be working on the likes of getting Darren Oliver. Mark Hill has said he's game for sometime towards the end of June as a Zoom, and Claire for the C2 training. That's going to be very important. Anyway, thank you so much for the emails so far, and I hope to virtually see you at some point. Bye.